Glen Campbell is a rags to riches story, if there ever was one. Now, the one thing that always seems to get covered over when people are talking about Glen and his life and career in music is his fantastic guitar playing. I hope to shed as much light on that as I do his other talents and his accomplishments in this video. So let's get right to it. Glen Travis Campbell was born April 22, 1936 in Billstown, a small community close to Delight, Arkansas. He was the seventh son of 12 children. He often stated that he was the seventh son of a seventh son. His parents, Wesley Campbell, and his wife, Carrie, were sharecroppers. At the age of 4, Glen was given his first guitar, a $5 instrument bought from a Sears and Roebuck mail-order catalog. He never put it down after that. Then after dropping out of school at 16, he joined the country and western band of his uncle Dick Bills, performing around Albuquerque, New Mexico. Within a few years, Campbell was leading his own band, the Western Wranglers. After moving to Los Angeles to work as a session musician, he became a member of the great stable of musicians known as the Wrecking Crew. They played on hits by Frank Sinatra, Elvis Presley, the Righteous Brothers, the Beach Boys, and the Monkees, and more. Glen says that one thing that got him a lot of session work was the fact that he used a capo and could still play open chords that would ring out in the keys like E flat and so on. He used this on the recording of Sinatra's Strangers in the Night. He said, "The players out in Los Angeles wasn't hip to the capo at that time." And I find that really strange. Maybe because, like Glen, I grew up in the Midwest and there was always a capo laying around for our old acoustic guitar we had at the house. Glen could play in any genre of music he wanted to, and I'll tell you a little story later on why I believe this. His guitar playing can be heard on songs for artists like Nat King Cole, Merle Haggard, Steve Lawrence, and Eddie Gourmet, and just on and on. The Righteous Brothers, "You Lost That Lovin' Feeling," was one of his favorite songs to have played on. Later, Glen was to go out on tour and be the opening act for him when Glen had the song "Gentle on My Mind" out. He said he came out and did 15 or 20 minutes with an acoustic guitar. They were playing mostly colleges and shows like that. Glen says that "You Lost That Lovin' Feeling" and the Simon and Garfunkel song "Bridge Over Troubled Water" was what he considered the two best songs he ever played on while working in the studio. Drummer Hal Blaine of the Wrecking Crew said of Glen, "He was one of those great guitarists who could hear a part once, and he had it down pat. Arrangers just loved that he could play off-the-wall solos, just the wildest sound you ever heard." One of his contributions came on "I Get Around" by the Beach Boys. In the early 1960s, he played acoustic, electric, or 12-string guitar on numerous Beach Boys recordings, besides "I Get Around," including songs like "Help Me Rhonda" and "Dance, Dance, Dance." His inability to read music often made him the butt of jokes in the studio, but he was held in high regards by Brian Wilson and the Beach Boys, and that was evident when they asked him to tour with the group in 1965. He took over for Brian Wilson's slot, becoming the bass player and singing all of Brian's high harmony parts. Glen says he didn't have many problems at all singing the parts, as he was familiar with a lot of their music at the time, and he knew most of the chords, so he just had to adjust a little to the bass guitar. Glen had a great time working with the Beach Boys, but it didn't last too long, as he wanted to be on his own. So it wasn't long before he bowed out and left his bass guitar and harmony parts to Bruce Johnston, who, by the way, is still playing and touring with Mike Love's version of the Beach Boys. And Glen moved on to focus on his own career, which he had started a few years earlier. His first recording as a featured singer was "Turn Around, Look at Me" for the small Crest label in 1961. It did lead to a contract with EMI subsidiary Capitol Records. Glen's early efforts for the company included a version of Buffy St. Marie's "The Universal Soldier" in 1965, and then 2 years later, "Gentle on My Mind," a ballad by John Hartford. His first hit, "By the Time I Get to Phoenix," composed then by unknown songwriter Jimmy Webb, came in 1967. Glen became a close friend of Webb and soon was to record Wichita Linesman and Galveston. They both were top 10 hits in the U.S. and top 20 hits in Britain in 1969, and Glen's career was off and running and the awards and money started rolling in. Let me just say that Webb's writing was top-notch, and with Glen's voice and recording experience, they became a very powerful combination back then. But Glen showed something else that was overlooked at times. Glen Campbell had a knack of picking out great songs to record. I don't know if this came from the years spent in the recording studio, playing on other hit songs or what, but Glen sure knew how to pick a song to record that had hit qualities. Around this time, Glen's life was very busy. He was asked to host a TV show that was to become the Glen Campbell Good Time Hour, and he was also cast to be in the movie True Grit, and he recorded and sang the title song for True Grit soundtrack album. His TV show was to last for 4 seasons and 91 total episodes, ending in June of 1972. His greatest commercial success was still to come with the song Rhinestone Cowboy in 1975 and then Southern Nights in 1977. Neither one of these songs were from a conventional country music source. Rhinestone Cowboy was composed by a New York pop songwriter named Larry Weiss. The rhyming of the words compromising with horizon was what caught Glen's ear and created his interest in recording it, while Southern Nights was a reworking by Glen of a piece by the New Orleans writer and producer Alan Toussaint, who firmly stated that Glen made it into a real song. Either way, Glen was back on top of the chart. Like many country singers, Campbell recorded duets during his career. First with Bobby Gentry, their version of All I Have to Do Is Dream was number 3 in the UK in 1969. And later with Anne Murray, Rita Coolidge, and Tanya Tucker. And I guess we can't mention Tanya's name without Glen's affair with her. Now Tanya, who was half his age, and the relationship scandalized the straight-laced country music establishment. There is no doubt about that. And by this time, Glen was getting into full-fledged party mode, which in itself wasn't uncommon for country stars at the time, but Glen was getting a lot of press coverage from it, especially from the tabloids. Glen was married a total of 4 times in his life. He never married Tanya Tucker, but they had planned to, and Glen wanted to make her wife number 4. But instead, he found another woman, half his age, named Kimberly Woolen, and they were married in 1982. He described their relationship as far more peaceful than the one he had with Tanya, and this one worked out well for him. Kim and Glen were to remain married until his death. I was always impressed with Glen Campbell's guitar playing. One of the reasons for that was he could really play any style he wanted to, and play them well. What really impressed me was back in the mid-'80s sometime, I saw Glen Campbell live on stage at an outdoor fairground. I did enjoy his earlier tunes, like Galveston and Wichita Linesman, but I was looking forward to hearing him and watching him play guitar. He was about halfway through his show, and he started talking about this time he was with the Beach Boys and rock and roll in general, and he was just standing there noodling on his guitar while talking. Then he said something to the effect of him playing the rock and roll of today, and he stepped on a pedal and he just started shredding. And then he went up the neck and tapped like the second coming of Eddie Van Halen. Then he just quit, toned down, and went off into doing a few Beach Boys songs in a medley. I remember thinking at the time, my God, this guy can play anything. I have no clue if this was part of his show or what. The band just sat back and let him go. But it really took me by surprise how well he could play that rock style. But as far as I'm concerned, Glen Campbell was one of the best all-around guitar players in the business. Let me know your feelings on this in the comments below. Anyone besides me ever see him shred on a guitar? It was something. Glen had issues with alcohol and cocaine addiction. He fought this battle for many years. His 4th marriage to Kimberly in 1982 started him on the road to recovery, but it would take a long time for him to finally clean up for good. The awards he won are staggering. I'll put a few up here real quick just to give you an idea. Of course, he was elected to the Country Music Hall of Fame in 2005. and the Musicians Hall of Fame in 2007. He's won 10 Grammys, and he's been nominated well over 20 times. He has won Country Music's Entertainer of the Year and Vocalist of the Year. His performance in the movie True Grit earned him a Golden Globe nomination for Most Promising Newcomer. Like I said, the list is staggering. Campbell was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease in 2011. He nevertheless launched the Glen Campbell Goodbye Tour, with his children becoming key members of the band. A film crew, led by filmmaker James Keach, followed Glen for some of the 151 sold-out shows as he navigated the disease. The resulting documentary, Glen Campbell, I'll Be Me, was hailed by critics and yielded the singer one last Grammy and a second Academy Award nomination. Glen Campbell died in Nashville, Tennessee on August 8, 2017, at the age of 81. He was buried in the Campbell Family Cemetery in Billstown, Arkansas. Let me hear your thoughts or memories of Glen Campbell. For me, I'll always admire him as one of the best all-around guitar players ever. He made a name for himself in country and pop music, but I believe he could have done it in any genre of music out there had he wanted to. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and share it so others can watch. And if you haven't done so, I'd appreciate it if you'd subscribe. And don't forget to ring the notification bell. Take care. And again, thanks so much for watching and supporting the channel. I really do appreciate it.